Yo, my creative work is to help you find that kindling, to set your life alight and live that king ting, queen ting. Give your keys back to the kingdom where love reigns supreme and creativity still breathing. Stoke the embers of ambition, keep you reaching, and fan the flames to ease the fear when it creeps in. Depending how you feed the fires of your dreams, and you can light them up for life, or you can burn out in a weekend. Yeah, we all know the story of the blaze of glory. I suggest you save your bee sting, show up tomorrow evening, and keep pollinating minds throughout the seasons. Creativity knows no ceiling, but don't be scared of structure when you're teething, because your genius appreciates an edge to sink its teeth in. Just be mindful of the narratives you're heeding and the signal you're receiving, whether tarot cards, astrology, or I Ching, or that laboratory they're sequencing your genes in. The patterns of your past are not your destiny in reprint, so change the ink up if the well is dry and rethink. Said change the ink up if the well is dry and rethink. Said change the ink up if the well is dry and rethink. Said change the ink up if the well is dry and rethink. Yes, change the ink up if the well is dry and rethink. That's what it comes down to a lot of the time. You know, it's a question of rethinking a lot of the suppositions that you've made in this life. Now, we are all born into this world of culture and society with all the fucking bright ideas on the shiny magazine covers that don't exist anymore because it's shiny gifs and all the rest of it on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, you're just bombarded with ideas. You're bombarded with beliefs. You're bombarded by the things that you should be thinking about. The things that if you want a good life, you need to pay attention to these things. And everything at the end of the day amounts to some version of believe the right things, create a good life. Believe the right things, create a good life. Seems to make sense, right? It's and the reason it's like that, or the reason we buy into that, is because it really seems to make sense. It's like, you know, if I can think the right things, then the actions that are going to be born from those thoughts are going to be the right ones. And so, if in the case that astrology is the right thing, then if I pay attention to astrology, then I'm going to be able to find myself a way to like tune in with the universal vibes, and then the life that I get to live out, you know, as a product of that is going to go in a way that I want it to, right? You know, but not to even shit on all of the slightly more woo-woo stuff. The fucking same thing's going on when it comes to like philosophy and politics and all of these sorts of things. It's kind of like, hey, you know what? If I think the right way, if I think the right thoughts, if I get in with the right kind of gang that has the right idea about the way the world works, then I'm more likely to live a better life as a result of it, you know? Now, one of the funny things is that the arts fucking transcends all of that. You know, the arts don't give a shit. The arts are too busy making stuff, making art, making dance, making, you know, music, all of these things. When you see people that have been dedicated to artistic pursuits since young, they're not so fucking fussed, right? Like, there may come a point where they get interested in all sorts of things. And that's not to say there's not a place for all of these other things in life, as far as politics, philosophy, activism, you know, spirituality, like finding a way to connect with yourself in various different contexts of what it is to be alive, right? There's plenty of different layers to it. The point where I'm always going to be kind of driving home this point, and it's this point, not any other point. It's not to dismiss anything else, but the point is that if you want to create a life, then it must be created. If you want to create a career, if you want to create a life you love on your own terms, where you're the dominant creative force in your life, then you have to know about creating. That is created. It's not a result of knowledge on its own. You know, knowledge is one of the many resources that may come into play for whatever creative process that you're in. But it is not the seed of creation in and of itself. Nothing gets born from knowing something. You've got to do something with what you know. And even that's a bit backwards, right? Like, we live in this age where school basically teaches us that you can ram down, you know, kind of front load all the information. Like, go to school for 16 years and then more if you want, and just sort of like stuff in a load of information into the human mind, and then fingers crossed it will be there in some way or somewhere or another when it comes to the actual creative process. Like, oh yeah, what do you want to do? Oh, you can draw on that thing that you learned 20 years ago. Yeah, not quite, right? Like, all right. And there's lots of different theories around kind of child education and the rest of it. We don't need to debate all that. The point here, and as I always say, the point I'm driving home is that if you want to create a life, you've got to learn to create, okay? Now, there's a line in the piece that I did at the beginning, right? Whether tarot cards, astrology, or I Ching, all that laboratory they're sequencing your genes in. The patterns of your past are not your destiny, and reprints to change the ink up if the well is dry and rethink. All right, so let's focus on that bit, because it's not just about the woo stuff. It really is just the same when it comes to science, right? There's a lot of debate at the moment around the free will question, right? Like, if we're in a physical universe that is kind of just playing itself out by the laws of physics, do we really have free will in this case? Now, as far as I'm concerned, and there seems to be some, there's some like scientific grounding for the things that I'm saying. But if we really look at creativity and we look at what the human capacity to be creative is, it involves choice. Now, I don't know where choice fits in the free will debate, but it's a real part of being human. And when you're creating, you choose. You make choice upon choice upon choice upon choice. You make the choice to finish projects. You make, and so stepping back from all of that, like, how do you become a successful creator? You need to learn how to create in a structured way, right? And what that means, what structure means, as far as the creative process goes. You want to look at what is the structure of your creative process? How does the structure of how you're approaching something guide you from beginning to end, okay? So Robert Fritz is a guy that I've learned a ton of stuff from. And, he'll talk about structural dynamics. And one way to think about that is that the riverbed is what guides the flow of the river, okay? And when you set up a creative process, you have choice around how you set up those structures. And by the way you set up those structures, you can increase the likelihood of success massively. And there are other dynamics at play, right? There are, for example, tension. Tension-seeking resolution is a huge part of setting up creative structures that are favored towards the outcomes that you want, okay? So you can set up a structure where there's enough tension in the system between what you want to create and where you are right now, and there's enough tension in between that at the beginning you're propelled that way, and then you gain momentum, and then, it results in the outcome that you want being created. Now, people that don't know how to create, it can seem like the world is just the best you can fucking hope for is for your life to make peace with the randomness and chaos of life. Like, that can be sort of like the spiritual nirvana, to just be like, okay, wow, I don't really have much of a say, but I'm going to make peace with the fact that life is chaos, life is suffering. Some of my desires come about, others don't. Sometimes the universe blesses me with something, other times it doesn't. Sometimes, really, a kind of, it's sort of like a consolation prize is how I think of it sometimes. Now, let's talk, just to be completely clear, that's me, I'm a big creative spirit. I've got a lot of creative spirit and desire to see my will enacted on this planet, right? However, I'm not the best creator and I haven't done as many reps as I want to, and that's all part of this process. But I see it in so many people that many people's dreams and desires, they are kind of outstripped or outweighed, or their desires surpass their abilities as a creator. And so what they do is they go and learn more and they cram in more knowledge, right? And there's all the blogs and your favorite YouTuber or TikToker or whatever giving you the productivity hacks or mindset hacks or morning routine. And these are all process based and they don't mean a fucking thing unless you're in a creative structure, unless you've actually got this underlying structure that's set up and that you've got fluency in, that you've done the reps. All right, switching topics, but still related to the same thing. I saw this guy that I follow on Instagram, a guy called Nico Cannon. He's a Colombian guy, been a dating coach, a relationship coach, tattoo artist, all of these sorts of things, and now he's doing kind of business coaching, that kind of thing. Now, the fascinating thing about this, and once you get it, you start to see it everywhere, right? He's a successful entrepreneur, okay? And in this video, he talks about his entrepreneurship journey. Now, the fascinating thing to me is he was a tattoo artist and he created a successful tattoo studio in Toronto, I believe. Now, just that right there. All right. And as a little aside, okay, he's teaching kind of business and spirituality and, how to kind of live in harmony with life while also creating big impact, that kind of thing. Now, I have no doubt the guy is he's doing really well. So I have no doubt that he's able to deliver results, especially to people that are already cutting the mustard, that are already getting somewhere, that already have that creative foundation and that they're doing well in the world. What is fascinating, though, is that I don't think that many people understand what's required to get to that level because they've internalized it so much. They don't really know what's actually going on under the surface, right? Under the bonnet. So as soon as I heard his little story about his life and I hear that he's a tattoo artist, it was man. Okay, he wasn't just that. He was painting pictures and selling pictures before that. Paintings. Now, so right here we've got what's going on. What is going on in this entrepreneur's life? There's reps going on. There's full cycles of the creative process in every single painting. And if you're selling paintings and you're selling tattoos, then you're going from conception, vision, current reality, blank canvas, full painting being sold. Again and again and again and again and again. So that's the creative process from germination all the way to completion, all the way through again and again and again and again and again. And tattooing, that's a permanent thing, right? So the stakes are there and yet you're still there. You're holding the tension. You're seeing this thing through. Now there's skills and talents and abilities that he would have cultivated much younger, to hone the craft of drawing and painting and artistry and all of those things. And so when you're looking at someone who's successful and you're seeing that, yeah, they've done all of this stuff and they've done ayahuasca and they've done this sort of thing, and they're telling the story it's just this, it's this adventure of life, and it is, and it's an entrepreneurship that's had its ups and downs, and it is, and it's been successful, and it's all of those things. But what you're often not seeing is the fact that before anything, they are a fluent creator. They're a fucking proficient creator. Reps after rep after rep after rep after rep. Increasing the set, increasing the difficulty. The stakes are higher. All of that just ramping up. The capacity of these people that are really effective is because they've started out and they've seen and proven to themselves that they can go from nothing to something once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, hundreds of times. Now, once you start realizing that you can go from nothing to something and you have a track record of having done it thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, you know what that's like to go from that stage to okay, I've got a new vision that I want to deliver. I want to bring something into being that does not exist on this earth, whether that's a business, whether that's an art piece, whether that's a home, whether that's a community, a collaboration, and you have a track record of thousands of times of creating start to finish, shipping it out, start to finish, shipping it out. When you have that track record, it is a totally different proposition. You're in a totally different structure because you know how to create. So it doesn't matter what idea you have. Someone in that position can go from that to pivot to sort of anything they want to do, because they have built up this creative capacity within them that can deliver upon the visions that they have. That is not the case for lots of people who are seeking entrepreneurship advice, or who are seeking kind of a spiritual way of being while they go about their business. They just haven't done the reps. You have not done the reps. You know, if you're still listening to this and you're interested in creating, what you haven't got and what you haven't been taught is how to gain fluency and proficiency by being a creator first. Now then what you apply it to can be whatever. Now you might have experienced this as well. You go and you find these how-tos from entrepreneurs and they've got all of these courses and they show you exactly what to do and you don't do it. Or you get a little bit of the way through and you can't really follow through, or maybe you push yourself to follow through, but then it really fizzles out and doesn't really amount to much. Well, why is that? It's because you're biting off more than you can chew, right? And that's another line from the beginning, you know, don't be afraid of structure when you're teething because your genius appreciates an edge to sink his teeth in, right? Like that's what your genius wants. It wants something that it can get its teeth around. It's small enough that you can complete the cycle, start to finish. That's what you're going for, right? You want to increase your reps before you increase the difficulty, the intensity. You can make things easier until you can go through the whole thing again and again and again and again and again. And that's how you increase your creative muscles, right? That's really what you're looking to do. And that's the unseen bit in half of these success stories. You have no idea about the amount of work that has gone into them becoming who they are. And I guess that's somewhat intuitively obvious a lot of the time. It's like, oh yeah, we don't see all of the sweat. But what you don't often see is what people is an accurate description of what that sweat is. Because it's not just them doing their particular thing. There is actually there's a general dynamic that is working underneath whatever it is anyone who's successful has been doing, whether they're athletes or whether they're artists or whether they're business people, is that they are proficient masters of the creative process, which is mastering tension between the desired end result and where you are right now. And every iteration and deviation and adjustment that you make along the way to get that end result nailed, dialed in exactly the way you want it. Whether you're looking at dancers getting that particular move right, or athletes getting a particular bit of footwork right. It's all the same thing. It's dialing it in until it's where you want it to be. Now that process is not familiar to a lot of people. And if you want to learn that, a lot of the time, none of these people will teach it because they don't even fucking know it. And so it's sort of, it's like, go to someone who can teach you that. And there aren't many people that are teaching that. So come to me, chat to me, because I've been through that whole journey and I'm in it right now, but it's really working with those dynamics. It's those dynamics that can make you better. That's what makes you a powerful creator. Then you can apply it to whatever you want, and I fully believe that. It's like once you've got that basis, you can really start creating your life in whichever direction. And you can get that basis by creating your life in whichever direction. All right? But it's the dynamics underlying the whole thing, the structures that you create, the dynamics that you apply, and how much you're willing to separate yourself from the process. All right? Now, that's another whole video, so I'll leave this there. But peace. TrueCreators.life. If you want to learn more about it, head there. You want to reach out to me personally, head there, DM me. And there's just so much you can do. There's so much you can do once you learn these basic dynamics and structures to set up your life around them and create what you want. Peace.